and your colleagues, some of whom are sitting behind you, we all remember well spring of 2020 when the world economy almost melted down. It didn't in substantial part because of the actions that you and your colleagues took. You kept this thing in the middle of the road. Now, some days you had to do it with spit and happy thoughts, but you kept it in the middle of the road. I remember particularly your currency swap lines. You didn't read a lot about it, but I can understand when the world's melting down if other countries seek out treasuries, but when they don't like treasuries, they want hard, cold American dollars. That's scary. So I want to thank you. This is my question. We have spent, not just during the Biden administration, but during President Trump's administration, we have spent an enormous amount of money. I mean, it's breathtaking. And now some agree with it, some disagree with it, but some say you shouldn't have done it. Some say we had to do it. It's probably a little bit of both. A lot of it wasn't paid for. And I look around, and President Biden is asking us in the next, 6 months to spend, another $5.5 trillion. And there's a lot of talk about pay-fors, but it won't all be paid for. We know that. At what point do these deficits matter? Are we living in a different world? I mean, I know you'll probably say, well, deficits always matter, but at what point does the marginal benefit of the extra deficit spending become less than the marginal cost?
I don't think there's a precise point that I can identify. I will say that we're not on a sustainable path. We actually haven't been for a long time. That just meaning that the debt is growing substantially faster than the economy, and in the long run, that is not sustainable. We're going to need to, that the laws of gravity have not been repealed. We will need to get back on a sustainable path at some point. I think the time to do that is when the economy is strong, unemployment is low, taxes are rolling in. That's the time to do it, and to do it, with a longer-term plan that matches up our spending needs and our revenues. That's what we're going to need to do. We will eventually have to do that.
When do you think that will be?
I wish I knew. I mean, I would say, the dollar is the world's reserve currency. People are buying our paper around the world. I don't think there's, any issue of being able to fund our deficits in the near term and the medium term. There's no evidence that there is, but, we shouldn't wait until the urgent need arises.
Yeah, it's too late then. Everybody seems to be a Keynesian now, and that's fair. Dr. Keynes was brilliant, but some people forget about that chapter in one of his books where he said, okay, you deficit spend and you borrow to stimulate your economy, but when it's better, you pay it back. He said that very clearly. You pay it back. The other thing that none of us wants inflation. But it's not just inflation, as you know much better than I do. It's inflation expectations. And I worry that if we spend this extra $6 trillion or $5.5 trillion that President Biden wants to spend, that the private sector is going to say, we're going to have more inflation. I don't care what they say at the Fed. We're going to have more inflation, and we're going to start raising prices. I mean, you don't have to be Einstein's cousin to figure that out. Don't you think that's something we have to consider?
Well, I would agree with you that inflation expectations are really central to what we think are central to what creates actual inflation. We see them now being, they've moved up. They moved down at the beginning of the pandemic. They've moved back up roughly to where they've been in recent years, so they're not at a troubling level.
Okay.
But it's something we'll be carefully watching.
All right. Last point, I'm not expecting a response. Resist the pressure. You're going to be asked by a lot of people to get involved in social policy, in cultural matters, and in what some will call economic policy that really has nothing to do with the Fed's mission. And it's not just happening here, it's happening all over the world. Don't let us become Turkey, where the whole central banking system is politicized. Please resist it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Kennedy. Senator Smith.